Okay, we're going to open with a version of the set aside prayer. God, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and you for an open mind and a new experience of myself, my unmanageability, my spiritual path, and especially you. Thanks for taking these steps with us. My name is David. I am a recovered alcoholic and drug addict, and with me is
Well, I would be David too. I'm a recovered alcoholic and drug addict, and welcome everyone.
This is not a fellowship group or meeting. Instead, over 12 weeks, we are taking the 12 steps of recovery together, following the precise, specific, clear cut directions in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because this is not a fellowship group, anyone interested in the program Recovery in the Big Book is welcome to take the steps with us. Goal is to take the steps and then learn yourselves how to take someone quickly through the steps. Some other information, we are recording the audio. We'll share it to the WhatsApp group. I know I am several weeks behind in doing this. Sorry about that. I think you guys, well, we'll get to that in a minute. If you're not in the
hmm
group, Emily will post a little link to how to join the WhatsApp group. Please commit to being here every week. So we got this week, we're in step 10, and we got two more weeks, 11 and 12. And please try to be on camera. I know a couple people in the dark with a sleeping baby, totally get that. But if not, try to come on camera. There's no attendee comment portion during the study, but we'll field questions, so please put them in the chat, and we'll try to answer them as we go or at the end. And if you're really struggling, some of us can get together with you outside this study to help you with whatever challenges you're having in comprehension. We are 100% not the official Big Book experts or gurus. We're going to share our experience and knowledge from our study of the book and the teachings of others. Our dictionary person is Emily. Wave to the crowd, Emily. Emily will post some definitions along the way and other important information. She's putting all that in the chat. And anytime we show like worksheet resources, like we did for steps 4 and 8, things like that are on our website, www.purposeofthisbook.com. So you can get resources there, like those worksheets and a little syllabus of the pages and paragraphs we go through. And it's just a recovery website. There's no ads or anything. It is not a commercial enterprise. It's just a information hub. So everybody can feel good about using those resources there. And I just want to say, thanks everybody. I was out for a couple of weeks. I had a little nasty surgery on my neck where they took a couple of discs out and put a couple of fake ones in. But amazingly, I am alive and well. It was 2 weeks ago today, and I got some energy back to be here. And many thanks for those of you who reached out, and so much thanks to Paige F., who sat in for me. Thank you so much, Paige. Love you, sister. That was a huge, huge help. Okay, so before we start up on step 10, I don't know, David, do you want to just do 60 seconds? I mean, we got through the program of how we get recovered before we get on to staying and growing. You want to just quick recap 1 through 9, how we got to this point?
Yeah, so let's talk about it real quick. And then one real commercial too, real quick. So Emily is speaking tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I know she put it in the chat. Put it in the chat one more time. Go support Emily tomorrow. Also, yeah, so step one, so we're steps 1 through 9, right? So we've recovered to this place, doing the work through 4 through 9. One is conceding to my innermost self that I'm a real alcoholic and realizing that my life is unmanageable. So I can't stay sober based off of just step one. Can't do it. But then came to believe that a power greater than myself can restore me to sanity, and then referring to as into alcohol, drugs, or whatever my drug of no choice is, that I have unclear thinking and that I have no power, no choice, no control. And then at 3, I'm making a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. So now for the rest of my life here on this earth, I will be standing at the turning point. Am I turning my will and my life over to the care of God? Big decision to be making here, but understanding the fact that me running my life on my own free will could hardly be a success. Then we got busy and finally did the action. We got busy and did a 4th step, a real written inventory. Because the mother of all inventories, we wrote it out, a 4-column inventory. And we always knew what the first 3 columns were anyways. I knew who I was mad at. I knew why I was mad at him and what it affected to some degree. I knew those things, but what I didn't know was what my wrongs or my harms were and what my faults were in those things. Other people did know, but now for the first time, I could see the truth. And then when I did that, I could sit down with my sponsor or whoever I choose to sit down with, and I can air out all this dirty laundry, and I can air it all out so that I have something to take to God in 6 If I'm clinging to some of these defects of character that I found in my fourth column, I pray for the willingness that they for the willingness to let them go. And then in the seven, I can say the 7-step prayer. We shared a personal 7-step prayer that I've written out. I don't know if Emily has it again; she could pop it in. But then by that time, now we're going to get busy and we're going to do an 8-step. And again, willingness is going to be a key player in that. Willingness to make amends to all them people, all those people that I have harmed. So then I make out that list. I'm willing to make. I probably did it. I probably have that list for my 4th step, and then I sit down at 9. Bill gives us a bunch of references on these what these reset or what these amends look like. And then now here we are today. We're going to find out something about step 10. Means that the clock never runs out on 10. That's where we're at.
All right, so we're going to pick up on page 84. We're in the chapter Into Action, and it's going to be the second full paragraph. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just reread the last paragraph that David and Paige covered last week that concludes the 9th step, because it really sets up, right? The next one. So the last paragraph of last week, so it's the first full paragraph in 84, was right after the 9th step promises, we are asked, are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Now, here's the important point that we're going to carry. They will always materialize, so the promises will always materialize. How? If we work for them. So now here's the transition point. This thought, that thought that I just read, that these promises will materialize if I work for them, this thought brings us to step 10, which suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. That means that assumes I did 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and at least started on 9, because I can't continue something I haven't started, right? So it goes on to say, we vigorously commenced this way of living. Continuing on, we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. Important note here, guys. This means we get into the 10th step process as soon as I begin my 9th step amend process, not after. These amends could take a long, long time tracking people down, right? So as soon as I'm into 9, I'm going right into 10. We have entered the world of the Spirit. What a beautiful promise. Our next function. So this is operation, right? So first of all, I'm just going to pause here. I want to make sure you guys are keeping up. There's some time references here. It says, right, as soon as I get into 9, I start working 10. I do it vigorously. I do it right away. I'm now living in God's world, the world of the Spirit. And when I'm in the world of the Spirit, what do I do there? Well, it's that our next function is to grow, means get bigger, in understanding and effectiveness. This is not an overnight matter, so this is not going to serve our desire for immediate gratification. It should continue for our lifetime. It should continue for our lifetime. That means until the day I die. And then we got a whole bunch of these actions. I'm going to really let David dig into them first. But here's how we work the 10th step in practice. Continue to watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. Where have we heard about those before? When these crop up, not if, when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. Love and tolerance of others is our code. Go ahead, David, and I'll chime in a couple more after you attack it.
Okay, yeah. This is like my favorite step too, by the way. It's not the one that I religiously practice enough, but I got to say it is something that I really love doing, because what I started out by saying earlier on is step 10 means that we never clock out. This is from the time I arise to the time I go to bed at night. I'm in step 10, because what is said right in the middle of that thing is we're talking about the world of the spirit. The world of the spirit means it takes me beyond the physical, the mental, and the emotional dimensions of life. But let's start at the top with David read and what brought us into the step 10. It says this thought and brings the steps. We suggest we continue to take personal inventory. So personal means pertaining to some with personal. Let me slow down. Personal means pertaining to one's relationship with God, with self, and with others. So I am familiar with the inventory, as David pointed out. I've done the mother of all inventories in 4, so this is a personal inventory. Can it be written? It can be. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't say it should be, but it could be. And then it says we vigorously commence this way of living. This way of living is steps 10, 11, and 12. I can't even conceive of making my amends without getting right to 10. And David already covered that. He did. It's like I can't even conceive making. As soon as I make my first amends, I'm into 10 and 11. That's just how the book is written here, and it should continue for our lifetime. You know why? Because we have 2 lives in one. That life that I lived before I got here, and that life that I live now, and they look 180 degrees different than that, and they continue to get better all the time. And then it says we continue to watch. So now we're going to look at spiritual disciplines. What are these spiritual disciplines? One of them, the first one, is to continue to watch. Watch is the first spiritual discipline. Watch for, and David just pointed out, selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. That was on our 4th step. And as David said, when these crop up, not if, we ask. That's our second spiritual discipline. Ask God at once. What I don't do is we don't ask God to remove them at once. I'm not giving direction to God. He doesn't need my direction. The book is real clear here. If I slow down, when these crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. The same way I asked God to remove them in 6 and 7. Then the third spiritual discipline is we discuss with someone when? Immediately. Not like when I get around to it. Like I have a sponsor and he knows he's my sponsor. I have running buddies in this program, people that I can call and do a 10 step when selfishness crops up or when dishonesty crops up or when resentment crops up or fear, all the above crop up. I can make that get a hold of someone immediately. The fourth spiritual discipline is and make amends. Amends is the fourth spiritual discipline. Quickly, don't hold back. I was wrong for the harm that I may cause you. I was sarcastic and I shouldn't have done that. And I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Make amends quickly. I haven't harmed anyone. Then we resolutely turn. Turn is the fifth spiritual discipline. Turn what? Our thoughts to someone we can help. That's 12-step work. Turning my thoughts to someone I can help. The rule of thumb that I use is if I'm thinking of Paul or I'm thinking of Mary and I think about them twice in a day, I'm picking up the phone and calling them. But what this is really referring to is because I'm in the 10 step and because either selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, or fear cropped up, I need to get out of thoughts of myself. And the best way to do that is to reach out to a fellow traveler. That's my experience. So the acronym is watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn. So what at? That's the acronym, right, Howard? Right? All right, buddy. I did it right this time. And then the last thing on in that page, and David will jump back in, is love and tolerance is our code. I don't know where that comes from, but it sure sounds like a Dr. Bob thing to me. I don't know. He seemed to be a little bit more patient than Bill, and I think that just came maybe from Dr. Bob, and I'm sticking to that. Go ahead, David.
So I'm going to, I'm sure, repeat myself and repeat some of the key things that David said as well. But just if you look at this paragraph, there's a lot of specific language in it. And so I want everyone to really be attuned to these things that are specifically being read here. And this is another example in the book. So this is not a bunch of flowery language. Bill's being very straightforward, saying this is the process that we follow. This is one of these examples that, out of my experience, if I follow the mechanical process of working my 10 step, what is going to happen is those mechanics are going to beget miracles at some point. And the next paragraph is really going to talk about the miracles we're going to get out of these mechanics. So I just want to make sure we're very clear in the language here. It's quite black and white. There's not a lot of gray. So as we're in 10, we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right new mistakes. To continue means I began this. So again, I have to have done the work in 4 through 9, and 9 might still be ongoing, absolutely, but I keep doing this, right? Very important. And we vigorously commence. Vigorously means like with a lot of energy, right? With a lot of activity, and commences to start. So I very aggressively went after, right? This new way of living, by the way, is this a way of living. I always say I start my day with God in 11, I end my day with God in 11, and then all day long, my way of living is with God in 10. Okay? As we clean up the past is when I start this. So again, as I'm into 9, I'm into 10. And we've entered the world of the spirit. I'm in God's world. This is how I need to behave. And then just look at some of this language here that David talked about. What do we do next as soon as we're in God's world? Well, I've got to grow. Grow how? In understanding. Understanding what? Understanding who God would have me be. And effectiveness. Effectiveness of what? Effectiveness of being God's agent. This is my purpose. It's my entire purpose. And I got to be in 10 all day long to make sure I am thick as thieves with God. So I understand what he wants me to do, and then I go out and do it well. Right? And how do I know? Well, because as I go through my day, I'm going to do the WADAT, the WADAT, right? I'm going to watch for where I screw up, which, by the way, I do. And sometimes I just screw up in my head and I'm caught first. And sometimes I screw up, blah, makes it out of my mouth, right? But I got to watch for that. And when, this is a key point, David talked about it, I'm going to repeat it again. So important, guys. I asked God at once to remove them. That's not saying, God, at once you must remove it. No, 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 no. I don't command God. I at once ask God for the help on God's timeline. There's a very big difference there, right? Then I got to talk with someone about it when? Well, immediately. How soon is immediately? Pretty much as soon as possible. And make amends quickly if we harmed anyone. How soon is quickly? Sounds like as soon as possible. Then what? I turn my thoughts to someone else we can help. Why? Because if I'm thinking about you, I'm not thinking about me sitting in my head. It's a very practical process, spiritual approach here, guys. And then love and tolerance of others is our code. Who's included in others? The people I like, the people I love, everybody. All 8 billion children of God on this planet. I must love them and I must tolerate them. That is my code. That is the way that God instructs that I live my life. And guess what? If I do all this stuff, then I get to enjoy the promises of the 10th step, which is the next paragraph. And I want to set a little more context here. If you think about, and I'm sure David probably brought this up a few times earlier in this study, in previous weeks, the way that the big book is laid out is that the doctor's opinion and then the first 23 pages of the book are generally about our physical powerlessness, right? And then from page 23 to 43 is generally around our mental powerlessness. And then from 44 up to 84 here, it's about our lack of power, our spiritual malady, and how we go find that power to solve our problem. So it's like we come in and we're like, man, I can't stop drinking or drugging. That's what I'm powerless over. And we get into that, but then we learn our real problem. And we really don't talk about alcohol for about 40 pages. I mean, it's in here, right? But that's not the primary thrust. It's about how I'm messed up in my head, my heart, and my gut. And then those 9-step promises that David and Paige covered last week, those promises say, this is what it's going to look like when my spiritual malady is resolved. But these 10th step promises about to come up, it's like we go back and say, oh yeah, now that we took care of that spiritual malady, by the way, the drinking problem, the drugging problem, the overeating problem, the cutting problem, the whatever I'm powerless over, the 10-step promises now tell me God's going to take care of those as well. And here's what they are. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. Mark that as a promise. For by this time, sanity will have returned. Mark that as a promise. What is the sanity? That's the step 2. Insanity, right? Insane in my judgment about what would happen if I pick up a drink. The sanity that's returned to me is if it occurs to me to have a drink, I say, I don't drink anymore. We will seldom be interested in liquor. Guess what? That's a promise. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. Mark that as a promise. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. Mark that as a promise. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. Mark that as a promise. It just comes. Mark that as a promise. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it. Neither are we avoiding temptation. Guys, can you even believe all these promises that are being spit out here? Is this unreal? We feel as though we've been placed in the position of neutrality, safe and protected. We've not even sworn off promise after promise after promise after promise here, guys. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We're neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. So we got all these promise, 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 promise. And then that is our experience. Whose experience? Well, Bill and the first 100 or so, right, that authored this book. They said we got all these promises as a result of how we got to this point in recovery and then kept growing in understanding and effectiveness. Right? That was their experience. That was my experience. And this is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Yet another promise, but there's a little caveat in there. There's a little, I will get this if I stay in fit spiritual condition. So understand, guys, this, and then I'll turn it over to David here. Steps 1 through 9 is the program of recovery to get me recovered. That's how I clean up my head, my heart, and my gut. Steps 10, 11, and 12 is how I stay recovered and grow in understanding and effectiveness. It really is sort of a part 1, which has got 9 steps, and a part 2. Now it's all together, it's all circular, just like a clock, but so you understand. I'm intended to get to a point, right? And then I grow from that point.
Yes. So last week, Paige did a good job, and I couldn't agree more. And I know David will too. A lot of times we hear the 9th step, the 9th step promises.
The promise. The promise.
Right? The promise. Yeah. It's like, come on. Those are nice promises. Don't get me wrong. I love them. But I really love the 10-step promises. I absolutely really love the 10-step promises because I'm living in the world of the spirit. And I brought this up before that the world of the spirit here is not the physical, the mental, and the emotional dimensions of life. It's somewhere else. And what I've done here with that spirit, because the world of the spirit is a noun, it's a place where, remember, we made contact with God in step 3, that he will provide everything we need if I stay close to him and perform his work well. That was on page 63. Means I've left the world of self. That's what I've done. I've left the world of self. I'm living in the world of spirit. So we have done a lot of work to destroy our self-centeredness. I couldn't remove my own self-centeredness. The work that had to get done, having a relationship of power. And then the world of spirit is living in the now, in the conscious contact with God, in the day-to-day activities that I go through here today. And so as we get into on page 84 in the 3rd paragraph, we cease fighting anything or anyone. That means love and service. That's it. There is no fight. And alcohol is last in that sentence, for crying out loud. I don't have a drink problem. I haven't had a drink and a drug coming up on 26 years pretty soon. I don't screw this thing up. But I don't even have personal relationship problems anymore because of this 10 step. The bedevilments do not live or are not alive and well in my life. So, and then we talked about sanity would have returned. So, and I got to go back on page 36 in the bottom where Jim's story, right? Jim's story about thinking put whiskey in his mouth. How could that be bad? But I'm just going to read the italics and I'm going to send us over to 37 because Bill gives us the description of what insanity looks like. Bottom of page 36, 3rd paragraph in squiggly writing. He made much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic. He had much knowledge. So just had knowledge about alcohol. Like understood that when I put alcohol in my body, that I have an abnormal reaction to it. I break out in craving. And once I stop, I cannot stay stopped. That is a problem, but it's not the problem. The problem is my life is unmanageable. So continue the paragraph. Yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. That would be insanity to think that's okay. And Bill gives us this next paragraph. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, We call this plain insanity. How could such a lack of proportion, the ability to think straight, be called anything else? My experience have told me over and over and over again, if I pick up a drink, if I put whiskey in my milk, if I take a weed, whatever the case is, I'm going to break out in craving, and I don't have the power not to pick up on my own. But back to the text here, back to the promises, go back to page 84, and it says, we seldom would be interested in liquor. Meaning, I don't have an obsession. The obsession's been removed. Remember, an obsession is a thought. But at the same time, as the obsession, when it becomes an obsession from a thought, it overrides all my thinking. Without my permission, without my consent, I'm picking up. I have no power, no choice, no control. But this is saying we'll seldom be interested in liquor. If I have a thought, or if I'm tempted, I'll recoil from it as from a hot flame. Bill made a reference to putting his hand on the stove on page 24 in the second paragraph. And then on to page 25, 85, I'm sorry. We react sanely and normally, recognizing the truth. I recognize the truth that I can't pick up. That when I pick up, I break out in craving. And we'll find that this happens automatically means that I don't have to think about it. Oh, how many? I can remember my first 3 months of sobriety. Every day I was thinking about how not to drink. That's
Mm.
still an obsession. And then one day, it was right around the 3 month period of time. I remember that I went about 2 or 3 days and I realized that I had not thought about a drink. The obsession was removed. I was in the steps. I was making my amends in 9. I was in 10. I was starting to sponsor people. Let's go back to these wonderful promises here. We'll see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. Listen, I am not telling anyone else that they can and can't drink. It's none of my business. There's 2 businesses I have in Alcoholics Anonymous: my business and none of my business. I just don't, I love being sober. Love being sober. And if you want to drink, you go ahead and drink. And you know what I found out? All the people that I hung around with didn't want to hang around with me anymore, maybe because I was contagious with sobriety, who knows? Or even the people that I have in my life today, they have a drink, a singular drink. They do not abuse alcohol. They start to feel it and they say, I'm done. So I am not against or for drinking, whatever your case may be. So comes, and this is the miracle of it. I have not performed any miracles. I'm not going to be a saint anytime soon, but I would say those are pretty big miracles, that I don't have the obsession any longer, that I have this freedom, that I can recognize the truth. Sanity is returned in my life. And then it says, we're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. I got a 2-year-old grandson, and when we put him down for a nap or we're outside playing with him, he's safe and protected. He knows that Mimi and Papa are going to take care of him, and his mom and dad are going to keep him safe and protected. My higher power is keeping me safe and protected. I have a personal relationship with my creator. I don't have to be ever concerned about it. I do have to stay in these steps. And then so as we are not even sworn off. It said the problem. The problem that we're talking about here is the mental obsession, the spiritual malady. It does not exist for me any longer. The spiritual malady has been removed. The unmanageability in my life does not exist for me any longer. And it says that, we are neither cocky nor are we afraid. I'm not taking credit for it. That is our experience, and that is not a theory. It is the experience of the first 100, and that is how we react so long. And this is a huge warning. David talked about it. This is how we react so long as we stay in fit spiritual condition. If I don't stay in fit spiritual condition, I could pick up again. I've seen it happen. That's all I got there.
All right, 5 more minutes on these promises. I'm going to hammer them again, and then you jump back in for a couple of minutes too.
All right, bro.
Again, guys, this is so important. These are such beautiful promises. Just look from the top. Ceased fighting. If you guys are anything like me, you are perpetually fighting everybody. It might have only been taking place in my head half the time, although I was very much a physical and verbal bully. I was at odds. I was fighting with everybody and everything all the time. It was one of my most defining characteristics, how much I wanted to fight and argue. I'm done with it, this promise tells me, right? And I mentioned sanity will return. My ability to discern, is it a good idea for me to have a drink? My brain will say, no, it is not. Move on to the next idea. Seldom be interested in liquor. What does that tell me? It tells me I might still be interested in liquor sometimes. We were just talking about this in another meeting. Every once in a while, does it occur to me to have a drink? Yes, it does. I'm an alcoholic. What do you expect? But as soon as it occurs to me, what's my next thought? I'm not going to drink. And then I'm on to like, when am I going to have something to eat? Or do I need to go to work or stuff? I'm moving on to the next thought in my life. Because my thought about drinking, about drugging, never turns into an obsession anymore. All right. And if tempted, we recoil from it as a hot flame. It's just what I experience. I'm moving on. I react sanely and normally. Again, if you're anything like me, you were not reacting sanely and normally to drugs and alcohol before you got recovered. I sure as Hades was not. I was insane and abnormal as it related to alcohol and other drugs, right? And this new attitude towards liquor been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. It's a miracle of it. This doesn't mean I didn't work hard to establish my relationship with God. It absolutely does. But it's still God's power that fixes me up, guys, right? And I'm not fighting it. I'm not avoiding this whole next little bit, but neutrality, having sworn off, problems been removed. What that means to me today is I don't have a drinking and drug problem anymore. I also,
Mm-mm.
so I don't have this. I don't not have this. There just is no relationship with me and drugs or alcohol that has a definition. It's just not a part of my makeup anymore. It's just, it's just gone. It's just been removed. Doesn't exist. I'm not cocky. I'm not afraid, right? That means I'm not in excess of any emotion. As long as I stay in fit spiritual condition, I'm gonna be smooth. I was just telling the guys in a meeting on Wednesday night. I was in the hospital 2 weeks ago today, and they were getting ready to wheel me back in, and the anesthesiologist said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a little something so you don't freak out as we wheel you back into the operating room." I said, "What are you going to give me?" He said, Versed, it's like Xanax. I was like, "No, thanks. I used to use the hell out of Xanax." He's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm fine." Roll me back in. He rolled me back in. I was fine. It was cool. There was a whole operating room of people focused on who? Me. All the attention in the world. That is sane thinking that I said no thank you to free drugs that I used to abuse. How beautiful is that? Right? Go hit
and,
it one
and,
more time.
and know that accountability was playing a part in all that too. David was communicating with me the whole time, not because I'm like going to pass out his pill for him or anything, but he's just talking to me because I
Yeah.
may have to have been. I've had experiences where I'm like, I had a surgery and I knew David had it before, so I'm like, dude, what did you take? I don't know. I don't want to take any mind altering substances, and because he had an experience in the past, we took something that was not mind altering. But I want to talk about we were seldom interested in liquor. So a blessing took place in my life yesterday. So I'm gonna just say, real in the current moment. Um, I have you guys most of you guys know I have 5 daughters, and because of this wonderful program, they were real little when I was young, and I have a great relationship with them. One of them got married yesterday, and so of course we were at the wedding, right? It was a wonderful experience. It was at the courthouse, and then we were out for dinner afterwards. And I'm speeding the whole process up because I want to get to the point here related to the promise. He says we'll seldom be interested in liquor. I'm sitting at a table at a really fancy, nice restaurant. It was wonderful. I loved it, and I think people had drinks. I don't even know. You know what I was most interested in? I was most interested in my daughters. I was most interested in my 2-year-old grandson sat next to me with his Matchbox cars, and he was like playing with me back and forth. And man, it was just so fun. I loved it, and I was so involved in what was going on in their lives. If they had drinks, it was none of my business. I didn't care. It just, I wasn't interested in. I was interested in what did you get to eat, Claudia? That was my daughter who got married, and Alex, her husband. It's like that's what I was interested. Where did that come from me? No, that comes through me. That's through the power of God in my life today, guys. I'm not worried or concerned about it. Now, the caveat to that is if you got dope, I'm not hanging out with you. I'll tell you that. Or I'm not going to a dope house to pick you up and pull you out of it either. I'm not doing that either. But when it comes to liquor, and if I'm at a party, I will put a time limit on how long I'll probably be there for. But I love these 10-step promises. They're just full of hope. They're full of promise. They're not theories. They're experiences, and you must have.
Okay. Let's move on from those beautiful promises. Ooh, so there's something easy in recovery. What is that? Well, it is easy to do what? To let up on the spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. Oh, well, I was hoping he was going to say it was going to be easy to recover. No, no, it's basically telling me it's easy to backslide away from my recovery. And how do I do that? Well, I rest on my laurels, right? That means I'm saying the things I did in the past, my belief system is that's sufficient to keep me recovered today. Let me give it to you this way. You take a shower on Monday morning, how you smelling by Friday afternoon? I can't stay clean on Monday's shower. No more can I stay recovered and have wholeness and sanity in my head, my heart, and my gut on the work I did in the past. This is about action to maintain and grow my relationship with God. We are headed for trouble if we do. If we do what? If we rest on our laurels. For alcohol is a subtle foe. Subtle, we don't see it coming. It worms its way in. And a foe is my enemy. So important, guys. I'm sure you probably already have this highlighted. If not, please highlight these next two sentences. We are not cured of alcoholism. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. We are not cured of alcoholism. As far as I know, there's no cure for the physical allergy. I imagine if I had a drink today, I would trigger the allergic reaction, I'd break out in craving, and I would drink myself blind. All right? There is an abatement, there is a lowering, there is a recovery, though, from the mental obsession and the spiritual malady. That's what our program Recovery, the 12 steps, are all about. In the second sentence, what we really have is a daily reprieve. It means one day at a time. Not one day at a time I don't drink or drug. It's one day at a time I work on my relationship with God. That's the daily reprieve from my spiritual malady contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition or my relationship with God. Simply said, every day is a day. Wait a minute. How frequently is every day? Every day. Every day. Not some days, not most days, not 4/7 of the week. Every day is the day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. Remember, we're growing in understanding and effectiveness. That is carrying the vision of God's will. I have to understand God's will, and then I have to carry it. That's the understanding and effectiveness into how many of my activities? All of them. That means everything I do in life. Do you guys see how very clear these 10-step? I mean, there's no ambiguity here. It's so straightforward how I go about the 10-step. And here's the prayer. How can I best serve thee, God? Thy will, not mine, be done. Again, this is all about me and my agency to God. These thoughts, God, help me understand what you want me to do and help me to go do it. Those are the thoughts which must go with us constantly. How frequent is constantly? Are you guys seeing a theme here? It means all the time without pause. We can exercise our willpower. Remember, the willpower is no good. Wouldn't keep me from drinking and drugging. But we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. Is the proper use of the will. So what it's saying is I need to bring all of my forces to bear on one thing in my life. To understand and execute God's will. That's it. Anything that I'm doing outside of that is my will. And what happens when I live on my will? Bad stuff.
Okay. So yeah, David pointed out right in the, oh, first of all, let me point out, because this paragraph, the last sentence right before this paragraph sets this paragraph up. Because that is how we react so long as we stay in fit spiritual condition. So what if I don't do anything from my fit spiritual condition? This is what happens to old timers. And I don't know if I'm an old timer with 25 plus years. I'm not sure, but I don't want to find out what happened. But here's what the book says. It's easy. And again, David said, I think it says twice in the big book that something's easy. I think it's on page 42 or 42 in the second paragraph, if I'm not wrong. Something that's easy. Let up on the spiritual program of action. Rest on our laurels. Our laurels are things that I've done in the past. And a brief history of what that looks like in Roman times, when there was Roman games or some kind of game that's going on in town. There's a tree called the laurel tree, and if you won the event, you would wear the laurel from the tree and wrap it around your head, and you would walk around town for a day, a week, a month, whatever it is. And that is what he's referencing there, the laurel. I can't stay sober on the spiritual condition that I did yesterday. I can't. This is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition. And Bill gives us, a deadly warning here. We're headed for trouble if we do,
Mm.
because alcohol is a subtle fault. We're not cured of alcoholism. I don't know of anyone that's cured of alcoholism. I know people who've stopped drinking on their own accord. God bless them. That's not my experience. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of my spiritual condition, which is continued growth, as David pointed out. Every day is a day where we must, there's a must, another must in the big book, to carry the vision of God's will into what? All my activities. Everywhere I go, I invite God. I open up the door and let God walk in first. That is my job, to let God come in first. I don't have problems with personal relationships because of that today. So these are the thoughts that must go, which must go with me constantly. And David did a great job of pointing it out. The result of the steps is this: we can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the word of the will. Now I know what the proper use of my will is today. Be aligned with God's. But David.
So I'm not sure I get more fired up, than anything we cover than when, except for talking about these 10 step promises.
Mhm.
I just, I gotta take us back here to, really the 10 step is just 4 paragraphs, right? We're already like 3 paragraphs in here, guys. It's not that much content, but it's so important, right? I said this before and I just whipped through it, but I want to make sure you're clear on some of the things that I'm trying to convey here. So we talked about the first 9 steps, and David did a super fast recap at the top. That is the stuff that's intended to get me to have my spiritual awakening, or my first spiritual awakening. I've had many spiritual awakenings, right? And it's based on my comprehension, my understanding of my situation, and coming to terms with, if I'm going to get better, that I need to have a new relationship with God. And then I go and I clean up my past. That's 4 through 9, right? It's all these inventories and the going out and having to carrying faith over fear to get myself healed, right? And I got amends to make to a lot of people. I got amends to make to myself, right? I got to be hard on myself and I got to be easy on other people. I just got to get right, guys. I've got to get right. And then I get into 10 here. And really, as soon as I get into 10, because remember, it's constantly, it's every waking moment I'm living in 10. But I'm also, as I'm right into 10, I get right into 11. And as I'm right into 11, I'm right into 12. Now, in different sort of sponsorship and step lineage, step guide lineages, I'm sure there's different sort of recommendations. But what I do is I try to, so first of all, I tell the guys I'm working with, listen, if you've been to one meeting and you're there for your second one, and some guy's there for his first meeting, go talk to him. You may not have nothing to say other than, hey man, I'm here for my second meeting. You want to come sit by me? There's huge benefit in that. But by the time I've gotten somebody into the 9th step and they're doing their amends, I say, you must start praying for a sponsee or someone to take through the steps. Pray like your life depends on it, because it does, right? So that's immediately getting into that 12th step, right? But then as I'm living in 10, 11, and 12, and if I don't like to say I would change too many things, but I wouldn't mind changing the order of steps 10 and 11, only because this is how I go through my day, and this is really what the book tells us to do. And we're going to get into step 11 next week, but I'm just going to talk about it for a few moments here more. There's two, to you distill down step 11. It's basically saying start your day with God, end your day with God. And then it tells us how to go about doing that. So when I wake up, the first thing I'm supposed to do is get into some prayer and meditation with my higher power, right? I have to set the stage asking for direction to be healthy during the day. And then when my day is winding down and I'm retiring at night and getting ready to go to bed, not too late before I'm too tired, because then I'm like, I don't want to do this. You do it an hour or two maybe before I go to bed. I'm looking at God and say, how did my day go? Right? There's an end day inventory. But all day long, if I was only actively being with God and working on my relationship with God at the very beginning and very end of the day, what about the other 8 to 16 hours, whatever it is that I'm awake? I'm going to get up to all sorts of no good. That's the point of this 10 step, guys. And it gets people got confused because of how it was how the 10 and 11 are written in 12 and 12. Because it talks about an end of the day 10 step. Really, that's 11.
Mhm.
10's intended to be a spot check inventory. So as soon as I'm done starting my day with God, the next thing as I start to get squirrely, that's an opportunity for 10 step. I don't know how many 10 step inventories you might need to take over the course of the day. I don't know how many Ali needs. Maybe some days it's one. There's always at least one. And maybe some days for Mary, it's 1,000. Don't know. But if I am right, okay, yeah, I had those days too, Mary, believe me. But if I'm following the direction, if I'm watching all day long, I'm in a spot. And if I'm being rigorously honest, and here's the beauty of how growing and understanding and effectiveness in 10 and 11 and 12 works. Most of the time, the vast majority, 95% of the time, the behavior only is in my head and it never leaves out through my body or my mouth, the words or my actions. I catch myself. And when I catch myself, most of the time I'm like, dude, don't say that thing. Don't do that thing. And I just talk myself quickly off the ledge and I move on. And I don't know. It's like I didn't even have to get into the full 10 step promise. But if I do say or do something, if it gets outside of me, or if I catch myself, I keep having that same kind of thought, then it's time to tell on myself to God and to another person and get busy reaching out to get out of my dome. This is such a beautiful way to live, guys.
Yeah,
You-
so in that paragraph too, and it gets confused a lot of times.
yeah.
And right at the beginning of the book, it tells us one of the first things in the preface in the book that we recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. Right.
Mm.
So people confuse cure with being recovered. And David and I can speak for David here because I've gone to hundreds or maybe thousands of meetings with David, and we introduce ourselves as recovered alcoholics or recovered drug addicts, right? And people get offended by saying recovered, and I hear people saying they're recovering. Okay, what are you recovering from? Have you not done all the work? I mean, I know guys who've been sober longer than me are saying I'm still recovering. Like, dude, I have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. I will never be able to take a drink successfully again. I will break out in craving, like David said, and all bets are off after that, and that's because how did I get to that place? I rested on my laurels. It was easy to let up on the spiritual program of action. That's why 10 is such a great discipline. Those 5 acronyms, those 5 words that we made an acronym that Kathy did that actually and came up with what at, watch, ask, discuss, amend, and turn. That's what I'm looking for all day long. And if I do that stuff, I need to discuss it with someone immediately. Pick up the phone. I've done it with David many, many, many times because I'm in the moment where I can't get out of self. So I don't wait and pause and think that I'm going to pull this off on my own power. And the last thing I want to say is David brought up the words because we're going to get ready for step 11 next week about prayer and meditation. Prayer is about my intentions, like going
Mm.
to God with my intentions, and I go to God a lot of times with low expectation prayers. I do. I don't need to do that because it's not like, well, I'm a little afraid, God, you might not hit the mark. So I'm
Ah,
not going to go too high, right now, just because you might not be able to answer my prayers. It's like, dude, God has infinite power. Go to God with all my prayers and then sit in what Bill calls, meditation, which is thoughtful contemplation. Sit
mm.
and listen. Let the thoughts kind of come and go like clouds go in the sky. Don't try to control my thoughts. Don't try to control whatever's going on in my mind. Just sit, wait in quiet contemplation. It's the same thing that I did in the 5th step when I went home to be quiet for an hour and thank God from the bottom of my heart that we know him better. Why? Because I find out truth, and where there is truth, there is God.
Last thing I'll say before we read the final paragraph for today is I hope you guys heard what David talked about recovering versus recovered. I'm recovering when I'm healing. I'm recovering from my neck surgery. After 3 months, unless I screw something up by being a maniac in the meantime, I'm going to be recovered. The
Mhm.
surgeon said, we're going to get through the surgery and then you're going to go to PT, and you're going to take it easy. And after 3 months, You can do full activity, weightlifting, everything. I'm recovering. I'm going to be recovered. It is the same
Mhm.
thing for our disease, our illness. And the way we talk about it, like David said, as I'm first formally taking the steps with a sponsor or a step guide, sort of 1 and into 9, I'm recovering. But then I am recovered, and I'll know when I'm recovered, my head, my heart, my gut, as I'm growing in understanding and effectiveness and deepening my relationship with God and carrying this message in 10, 11, and 12. And damn it, people need to know that we get recovered. They told us that on the title page. Stop with the hamming and the hawing. This is not a bait and switch. This is a relationship with God. We get recovered. You're signing up for a lifetime of service program. Start telling newcomers the truth. All right? Don't be shy about the reality of our way of life. Okay. Last paragraph. 9 minutes. Okay, we're in great shape, David.
Mhm.
Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. I mean, again, going back, we started talking about this back on page 44. This has been the tenor of the last 41 pages, right? Is that I don't have power. It's a major problem for me. In fact, it is the problem, and I better find some power. If, so there's a condition here, if we have carefully followed directions. You guys read that with me? Carefully follow directions, not recklessly. Not, I'll do some of it and some of it I won't. No, no. Carefully followed the directions. We have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. So it's another conditional promise. If I've been doing the things that the book told me to do, following the recipe, I'm going to be feeling better. I'm going to be feeling the spirit flowing into me. How about this promise? To some extent, we have become God conscious, God aware. I can feel him in my head, my heart, my gut. I always say when I'm thinking about stuff in my recovered state, I always point to the sort of back right quadrant of my brain. This is where God sits here and whispers to me. And he whispers. He whispers, right? Because he knows I'm a defiant alcoholic addict. And if he doesn't whisper, I'm just going to willfully, trample over him. But he's just there. He's saying, yeah, don't say that stupid thing, David. Don't do that stupid thing, David. All right? God tells me he knows how to speak to me. Huh? So to some extent, we've become God conscious. And as we grow in understanding effectiveness, to an entire extent, we're going to become God conscious. We have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, right? This is my awareness that is powered by God. So, what are my other 5 senses? We learned these in like kindergarten, right? We got sight, we got hearing, we got smell, we got taste, we got touch. So, we got the 4 senses that come out of our heads, and then we got touch with our hands. Those are the 5. And then we have this 6th sense. It's our spiritual sense. It's my relationship with God allows me to understand I've got a greater purpose and calling here, and that is to act as God's agent. So I've started to develop it. I've begun to. But we must go further, and that means more action. Guys, we cannot be satisfied with better. I've been talking about this in so many recovery meetings. It's not good enough. Ain't it grand the wind stop blowing to just stop drinking or drugging or cutting or overeating? I'm not dealing with the real problem. The real problem is my spiritual malady. It's my unmanageability. It's what's inside my head, my heart, and my gut. And I've got to go further beyond overcoming the addiction. I got to deal with that malady. And how am I going to do that? Is it more sitting around hoping? No. More action, more doing.
So much is already been said about receiving strength and inspiration and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. Bill introduced this to us on page 62 in the what paragraph is that? The bottom paragraph. So that's third paragraph. So after he introduces to us what our real problem is, and he waited 62 pages to do this, that we're selfish and self-centered, and that we think is the root of our troubles, I thought I was drinking. Come to find out, that's just a problem. That is not the problem. But on the bottom of that page, as we make our decision here, it says God was going to be our director. He is our principal. We
Mm,
are his agents.
mm,
Agent is one who gets to act upon another, upon this power. God is going to make me the vessel to carry this message, not my message, because my message is garbled. It's a bit of the big book, a little of the 12 and 12, and a whole lot of my opinion. And you'll end up dead if I do that to you. But if I come straight out of this book and I am an agent of God, he will be my father, and we are his children, because most good ideas are simple, and this is the concept was the keystone. So we're talking about the triumph of walking through the arch, freedom of the bondage of self, because I've connected to this power. And if we're back to our promise here on 85 in the second paragraph, we carefully follow directions. So that means honestly and thoroughly, didn't cut any corners and work these steps with the desperation of a drowning man. We've begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. Have you ever I did it last Sunday. I was at a live meeting, and one of David's grand sponsees was there. And he's a really good he's like a couple years sober, and he thunders out of the big book. But man, when he was talking, I felt the spirit of God, the flow. There was no stammering. You hear me stammer once in a while. Those are my words. When I'm not stammering, those are God's words. And this guy was nailing it. He had the room's attention. I was like so proud of him. I had to let him know afterwards that he was really connected to that power. He says, and then back to the text, it says, to some extent, we become God conscious. So that means that I have a conscious thought of God. Like I'm aware of God. I'm bringing God to everything. I open up the door and let God walk in first. I say a third step prayer. I say a 7-step prayer. I say 11-step prayer. I say the Serenity prayer. And the short version of the Serenity prayer is help.
mm.
God's always listening. Where is God? He's closer to my breath. Okay. So all I'm doing is inviting him in. He's not an intruder. He wants me to invite him in. And then it says we've begun to develop this vital sixth sense. And I used the word vital earlier in the book on page 27. And for me, vital means the continued existence of something. If I'm going to continue this existence of the spiritual, the sixth sense, and David did a great job describing the 5 senses that we have. In the spiritual sense, is I've grown a God conscious. We are relieved of the bondage of self. That's what that means for me, of self. It's no, I didn't do that. I couldn't have pulled that off of my own power. But then this is the caveat. This is such a just as much as important. But we must go further. That means more action. That doesn't say now we can coast. Take it easy, baby. No, that's not what this means. This is a lifetime process of what? Of self showing up again. That's the ego has a unfathomable way to replenish itself. I have to be aware and awake to that all the time here. And Bill loves the word action. He uses it over, I think, 125 times in the big book. So I'm thinking this is a program of action.
That was fun. I'm going to kill the recording and we'll
Okay.
a moment for anybody who wants to come in real quick with questions or anything.